right, let's see if we can get technology to work for us today. This is my first time using a Mac, ever, since grade school. All right, I'll get to that in a moment. So, as the man said, is this on? Can you guys, okay. As the man said, my name is Adam Smith. 4 years ago, as an undergrad here at MIT, studying computer science. And since then, I started a company called Zobni, which is the word inbox spelled backwards. What we do is we make email software, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the journey that we've been through. So Zobni got started when I came across email as an interesting, fertile ground to start a startup. My background is in machine learning, and so when I came across email, I was like, wow, there's all this data here, probably a million times more than all the data on the internet, but yet, when I open up any email client today, what I see is a list of the 20 most recent messages that I've received, and everything else below that is below the fold, and it's hard to find, and doesn't accrue any value to me at all. That's crazy. Plus, if you can improve email just a little bit, then you can create a lot of value. So those were the original thoughts. And I was lucky that I came across Paul Graham's essays when I was 18 and decided that I wanted to start a startup. So I applied to Y Combinator, and they flew me out to California for an interview, and they flew me back with $12,000 in exchange for a small stake in my company. Great, right? How did I get them to do this? Well, I knew a professor at MIT named Robert Morris. I was taking his class at the time, Distributed Systems. Robert Morris is also a partner in Y Combinator. And he knows a professor who I'd done research with and published with as an undergrad. So I had a reference from a distinguished source, which certainly added on top of my good looks and clear brilliance for my case. So back to the flight, I flew back to Boston, met with my professor and told him, Hari, I'm dropping out of my master's program. He took it quite well, which means that I was on my way. The next step was to find someone to start the company with, to find a co-founder. Paul Graham, who started Y Combinator, told me, go shake your friend's tree and see who falls out. So I got on the phone, and I started calling all the smart people that I knew. And I eventually came across Matt Brezina, who fell out of the friend tree. Matt and I had met a year earlier off of none other than Craigslist when I was looking for an apartment to stay in DC for the summer for an internship that I had. I didn't meet Matt until the day that I moved into the apartment, actually the night that I moved into the apartment. And Matt and I spent that whole summer, all of our free time, talking about business and life and girls and everything else that there was to talk about. Matt's an incredible guy. He's an electrical engineer by training, not a coder, but he's great with people and has tons of energy, much like Alexis, who will be talking right after me from Reddit. What's next? Buffer underrun. So I called up Matt, and I convinced him to cancel his flight around the world to come move to Boston with me to start Zobni. We set up shop in an apartment near Harvard Square, and it was very humble living at the time. We sublet out our third bedroom. We got $35 desks from Goodwill, and our kitchen table is surrounded by folding chairs we bought from Costco. There was nothing left to do other than to write code. And code we did. There I am. All right. There's a little bit of a latency here. The signal's being bounced from Mars. I'll go over to the podium. Now, this is no longer true, okay, for you hackers out there, but all the time, for the first year of the company, all of our passwords for everything related to the company was an ambitious Zobni rules. You gotta have faith, right? Here's our picture of our living room. This is where we worked from. There are more monitors in our living room than items in our fridge. Drew Houston of Dropbox actually wrote his first lines of code in our living room as well. We were working very hard at the time, but it was amazing the wonderful, just emotional brotherhood, of just working together, hacking through. Drew isn't just a rock star in my heart, ladies in the audience. Drew is also a rock star in real life as well. At the end of the summer, we were able to raise $80,000 from various angels, including Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail. We moved out west and set up shop in an apartment with a great view overlooking the bay. We figured, if we're going to be spending thousands of hours in this apartment, it might as well be a place that's very comfortable, and comfortable it was. This is a usual, typical scene in our apartment. So up until that time, it had been Matt and I, and what we found was it was very difficult to hire programmers without real money in the bank. So we set out to raise a Series A, which is what you call the first major round of funding that your company receives. I'm not going to talk a lot about financing, unless if you guys ask me questions about it, because I expect that other people will cover the topic more generally. But we raised $4 million in a Series A in early 2007. That's about the same time that we hired our first employee, Gabor Cele. This is the team now. So if you connect the dots, what you get, never seen before, is Zobni's employee count over time. We grew at an average rate of about 1 employee per month, which is a pretty good pace to set. We were very picky about who we hired. So that's it kind of for the evolution of the team. I'll talk a little bit to the evolution of the product. So Zobni debuted at the first TechCrunch conference, the TechCrunch 40, in 2007. And that was great to be out and to show our product to everyone. What was even more exhilarating, though, was that was the first real market feedback that we got on our product. And it was positive. That was great. We got all kinds of coverage. Everyone gave us good signals. The product had performance problems and it had warts, but that's what you'd expect from any early product. What was the most important was that it was something that people wanted. Startup heads call this product market fit. It's the point at which your product is still early, but you've kind of proven that you've created something that people want and that there's a market for. This is a very pivotal moment in any startup's life. Before you reach product market fit, it's important that you stay small, that you don't grow past about 5 or 6 people. Before TechCrunch 40, the Zobni team was about 5 or 6 people, and everyone knew everything about what was going on inside the company. I knew in painstaking detail every expense that we had, the history behind every feature in the product, and every conversation that was going on with every outside party inside the company. And so did everyone else. And this superconductive hive mind, trademark Adam Smith, 2009, is critical to achieving product market fit. It makes you more nimble. It makes you more creative. It makes you more energetic and more efficient. Once you hit product market fit, though, you can scale up the company. And at that point, it's no longer about, can we build a product that people want, which is kind of a journey and a mystery, and there's all this fog of war. After product market fit, the name of the game is more about brutal, raw execution. This is a point which you have a product that people want, but you have no implemented or proven business model. You still have to remove all of the pimples from the product. It's been a while since I've been a teenager. And there's just a lot of execution to do. You have to hire a team, you have to figure out scalable marketing channels, you have to get an ARPU, average revenue per user, that's higher than your cost to acquire a paid user, and there are still all kinds of things to do. In fact, it took Google from 1998 to 2004 to go from product market fit to IPO. So there's still times in the company when you wonder, how are we going to make it? Just fewer of them. One of the other things that we found when we got to product market fit was we got more balance in our lives. I didn't mention this before, but for the first year and a half of the company, my co-founder and I and the early team were working 7 days a week, all waking hours. I'd roll out of bed and literally start writing code in my boxers. It was too much. Looking back, it's too much, but we got an incredible much done. So, to show you this point, this is my email by hour of day sent during 2007, which is before product market fit. What you can see is I come into the office about 12 noon, and I go out to dinner, and then I come back, and my peak email time is at 12 midnight, and I go back home around 2 a.m., go to sleep around 2 a.m. In 2008, though, after product market fit, we balanced it out a little bit more. So here you can see I get in around 10:30 or 11. My peak email time is at 12 noon, exact opposite of before product market fit. I go out to dinner, send some emails from home, and that's that. So back on the product evolution, I mentioned and kind of shortcutted to the fact that the Zobni sidebar that we launched at the TechCrunch conference was something that people want. But this was 1.5 years into the company, which is a long time. So what were we doing? The first product, and actually the product that generated the graph on the last slide, was called Zobni Analytics. Zobni Analytics was like Google Analytics for your email. So it could create any chart, any graph, any table that you would want about your email. When do I receive emails? How quickly do I respond to people? You can fold the time series in all kinds of fancy ways. And what happened was, it was a great product, but when we gave it to our friends, they would use it, but not on a daily basis. They would look at it, but these patterns don't change that often. So they might look at it once a quarter, or somewhere in that range, which just doesn't create enough value for the company. For the user, the company can capture it. So on the other hand, we showed it to some management consultants, and they said, wow, this is awesome. If I could get inside all these companies, I could see how salespeople's response times correlate with different sales conversion numbers, and they got super excited about it. So at that point, it was a crossroads in the company, and we could decide to either become an enterprise email analytics company or scrap the product, go back to the drawing board, and come up with something completely different. We decided to come up with something completely different, which was painful. I'm not telling you this so you can shortcut around it. I'm telling it to you so that you can forgive yourself when it happens to you. It's a brutal fact of startups that you have to be nimble, and it's all about learning. In fact, a lot of companies have it even harder. PayPal went through 4 different product ideas before getting to online payments. Flickr worked on games and other products for 5 or 6 years before they came across photo sharing. So if you look at these overnight successes, of course, they usually went through several stages of evolution to get there. So we scrapped the product. And what we thought was, for the next product, okay, the first product didn't provide enough recurring value. It wasn't something that people would want to use every day. And so that was the step number 1 for our new product. That was what we had learned. So what we said was, if we're going to provide recurring value, let's carve out some UI space as a sidebar on the right hand of the main Outlook window, which, by the way, is like the number 1 app for any business or information worker. It's their browser and Outlook. They spend hours a day here. So that's good, right? So it was kind of throwing our hat over the fence, and then we had to climb over, because once we had carved out that space, that behooved us to find some high-octane material to put in it to justify our existence, so to speak. This is the first version of the sidebar. We went through several iterations. What we found was that people are important. The current context of what the user is working on is important. Never pop-up windows, etc. This is the current version of the sidebar with Facebook and LinkedIn integration and so on. And this was how we got to the Xobni sidebar. It was received with open arms. We got good press coverage, including from my childhood hero, Bill G. himself.
One other client example that I thought I'd give is called Xobni. It's actually inbox backwards. And this is where somebody's come into Outlook and decided to add value. They've taken the task pane that I talked about, so that you look over there on the right, that's their unique display area. And they're helping you understand who you send the most mails to and how you communicate and what groups of people you work with. In fact, this is really kind of a social networking set of capabilities, but brought into Outlook itself. And so we think it's very, very cool.
Thank you, thank you. My mama was quite proud. It all seems kind of lighthearted in hindsight, but in fact, at the time we were moving 1 millimeter at a time, and you never know if you're pointed in the right direction. It's quite emotionally demanding. But the most important piece is to be nimble. Okay, so far I've talked about the early history of Xobni, the evolution of our team, and the evolution of our product. What I want to do now is open the floor. I prepared answers to 7 different topics that I think are important when starting a startup. So what I wanted to know is mostly what you guys want to hear of those 7, or you can come up with your own questions as well. And if you come up with your own question, put some speed on it. Get some juicy questions going. Even for the other speakers for the rest of today. I know Alexis doesn't want to be... So come up with all the questions, ask anything is on the table. The 7 topics that I prepared for specifically, but feel free to ask about anything, include how to find an idea for a startup, how to hire rock stars, tips for just raw execution, my personal growth in starting Xobni, what Silicon Valley is like as an individual living there, and I forget the last 2, so I'll go ahead and show you the slide. Startup reading and why do it, which is in some senses the most important question. First to the mic wins. All right, it's 9 a.m., I'll cut you some slack.
How to execute well?
How to execute well, all right, that's a good one, Okay. Hopefully it doesn't require skills in PowerPoint. So I think it's this one. All right. So the first part, hire good people. That's the most important thing. You want people who are smart and get things done. It's also very useful if they're fire and forget, if they can sort of be their own project manager and understand business risk and delivery risk and things like that. But mostly, you know them when you see them. Hire good people. That's one of just the key things. External deadlines are very useful. Work tends to expand to fill the time allotted. So if you want to get something done quickly, sign yourself up for a conference like TechCrunch 40. And there's no way you can move the conference, so your product will be ready. You may have to buy some air mattresses off of Amazon next day delivery, but it will be ready. Put the onus on action. So, barring a reason not to do something, always do it. That's a great hint. It was kind of the slogan inside the Clinton campaign in the 90s. And it's just a great tip. Otherwise, you're not going to be experimenting enough. Onus on action creates a bunch of experiments. It generates a bunch of risk, which is great for small companies. If you're in a big company, you have to be more careful with this one, but this is one of your strong points as a small company. Speaking of risk, expect and hope 1/4 of your projects to fail. If everything that you try is working, that means that you're not taking enough risks and you're not being ambitious enough. I can talk to all kinds of failures inside of Zobni. Focus on the user. Legal negotiations, anything other than something that will keep the company alive in the next week is probably not worth focusing on in lieu of focusing on your user. Also, have lots of experiments, but make sure that they're strategically focused towards what you want to do. This is the problem that Yahoo has today. They have no strategic focus. They're just spread too thin across 50 to 100 products, and no one knows what's going on. On the other extreme, you have Apple, which has like 20 products for a $50, $100 billion company. Zobni, for example, does not solve the email triage problem. I meet with people all the time. They say, oh, Zobni, when are you going to help me stay on top of my inbox? That's a very hard problem. There are lots of dead bodies in that battlefield. Believe it or not, Zobni does not solve the email triage problem, which is a distinction that most people don't think about, but it's very important to Zobni's strategy. Learn how to use outside resources, outside contractors or consultants. In the early days, if you need a fancy launch video for a conference, hire someone outside the company to do it. If you need a fancy design for your website and you don't have any design skills in-house, hire an outsider to do it for you. That's a very good tactical tool. Build your DNA explicitly as a company. This is very valuable. People don't realize this. You don't get to choose your own DNA, but you do get to choose your company's DNA. Too often people miss this opportunity by hiring other people who are like themselves. It's completely wrong. If you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're a young CEO of a hot new startup, you should hire a COO with lots of experience. If you're starting an enterprise software company, God help you, hire a VP of sales with 20 years of experience and a Rolodex and relationships with all the people who will be buying your product. This is a great opportunity to shore up weaknesses in yourself. Hit the high notes. There's some operas in the world that only 5 or 10 people can sing, which is just wonderful. If you can find things that only you can do really well, that's awesome. If you take Dropbox, for example, no matter how hard they try, Dropbox's competitors will never be able, never, in no time, be able to match the level of their shell integration on the Mac, which is fabulous. Zobni, same thing. We have very significant technology inside of Outlook that's very hard to build. This is an opportunity to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. You raise barriers to entry and you wow your users at the same time. And finally, don't give up. Never give up. 90% of execution is keep going when anyone else would have given up. This is so important. Yes, sir.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. I'm not necessarily sure you'll cover them in your... we believe we have a really hot product, and what I wanted to know is, one, what's the investment situation right now, such as angel investor? What's the environment? And 2, is it better to do it on the East Coast in Boston or be in Silicon Valley? I prefer to be in Silicon Valley. I'm sure my partner.
I had slides on East Coast versus West Coast that Michael made me take out, but so I'll take the second question first because the answer is more straightforward. We were in Boston for 6 months, the first 6 months of the company, and then we decided to move out west. We asked a bunch of people who were serial entrepreneurs and experienced, should we move out to the west? Some of them, about half of them, said it doesn't matter, and the other half said yes, move out west. So truth be told, being the young, adventurous guys that we were, even if it was a wash, we would have moved because we went to school on the East Coast. But I do think it's very true that the West Coast is the center of all light and heat in the startup universe. Anyone that we want to partner with, say LinkedIn or Facebook, those guys are out west. All of the law firms for startups are out west. All the investors are out west. All of the culture that encourages programmers to work in startups and take the risk is out west. So there are just tremendous advantages to being there. If you're in the enterprise software world, it's a little bit more nuanced because there just is more enterprise DNA on the East Coast. But generally speaking, it's great to be in California. Except in San Francisco, it gets kind of foggy. But not as bad as the winters out here. Let's see. Raising money in this environment. You know, I was speaking with Ron Conway recently. He's the biggest angel investor in the world. He kind of has the index fund approach to angel investing. And he said that they're getting more startup deal flow than they've ever gotten. So there are a bunch of companies being started right now. And this is probably one of the results of a lot of the big companies shedding some excess weight that they shouldn't have had. So that's great. And in fact, investors are pretty active. I think, you know, the downturn definitely affected multiple levels of the economy. I'm no macro economist guy, but investors that I meet with are all looking for great deals, and it's very vibrant to this day. Yep. Hello.
I'd like to see what you have for startup reading.
For startup?
Startup reading.
Slide. Startup reading. Good question. Oh, I hit 25 minutes. All right, I will skip this slide. 3 things. Number 1, the classic canonical book, Founders at Work by Jessica Livingston. Many of you guys have probably read that here. It's a collection of stories. I love stories because I think that's the best way to learn and the best way to retain, and it keeps me entertained at night. And so, you know, the founders of TiVo, the founder, or this guy who made Gmail, et cetera, classic book. Number 2, there's this book from about 10 years ago called High Stakes, No Prisoners, which was written by the guy who started the company that got bought by Microsoft and became Microsoft Front Page. It's also written like a story. This guy didn't want to work at tech again, so he pulled no punches and kind of gave you all of the inside track on all the story. This book is out of print. You can still get it on Amazon Used Books. But what I did for you guys was I brought 6 copies of the book with me. So the first people up here to get them, you promised to read them. I had forgotten about the MIT ambition. That's great. I love it. Finally, Paul Graham's essays, paulgraham.com. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with those. They're classic. They're going to be my kids' first reading, you know, in their whole life is going to be Paul Graham's essays. Check them out. They're the bomb. Here's my contact info. Thank you all very much.